Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 8 of Entrepreneur Gains, where I interview Y Combinator alumni. On today's show, I have Jesper Thomsen, founder of Soundboks, a company that built the first and only Bluetooth performance speaker. These speakers are the loudest portable speakers on market and perfect for any kind of outdoor events. Almost 100,000 people have bought these speakers in over 40 countries so far, myself being one proud owner. They're on track to sell over 40,000 speakers this year alone and expected to generate a revenue of $30 million. dollars. In addition to being a YC alumni, Jesper is also a Thiel Fellow. The Thiel Fellowship was founded by billionaire and PayPal founder Peter Thiel to empower individuals under 23-year-old who have distinguished themselves in business, science, or social causes. They accept less than 25 people yearly around the world in this program. So all the love and respect for this dude. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and any feedback or constructive criticism is super appreciated. You can reach out to me on entrepreneurgains.com. Cheers. Hey, Jesper, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Thank you. Everything good here. How about you?
Good, man. I'm so excited to have you. It's been 5 years since I last chatted with you. So, first of all, I want
Long
to,
time no see.
yeah, I know. First time I want to tell the listeners about what Soundbox is, and yeah, just a quick, where are you guys? Any kind of numbers you can share about Soundbox.
Sure. Soundboks basically started as a quest to create sort of the ultimate portable speakers for parties, and has since then sort of transformed into a company that is more focused on kind of creating whole experiences and not just the sound. We're kind of seeing, okay, how can we help people create more nights that they'll never forget and less nights that they can't remember the day after when they wake up.
Love it.
And yeah, just quick numbers. I mean, we are 50 people or so, and I think we're doing, it's hard to say with Corona, of course, everything in the world's a bit uncertain, but I would say we're probably doing between 27 and $30 million in revenue this year.
Awesome.
Selling about 40,000 speakers.
Awesome. And how many do you think speakers have you sold over the course of your lifetime?
I think we are just shy of 100,000 right now.
Man, that's awesome. Congratulations. Great.
Thank you.
So
It's a lot of fun.
yeah, how does all came about? How did you get the idea and we got to where you are right now?
Sure. So I think it all started back in 2011 when I wanted to go to a Danish festival called Roskilde Festival for the first time. It's kind of like a mix between Coachella and Burning Man, I would say. And in Denmark, you start going to that stuff when you're 16, which I was at this time. And I quickly figured out that if you wanted to have, the best camp, the best parties and all that kind of stuff, you need the best sound system. So I thought, of course, I have to teach myself how to build that. So I started researching online and taught myself super basic, let's call it engineering in acoustics and electrics, and built my first speaker system. And I was actually pretty happy about it, but I remember bringing it to the festival, and I think it lasted for about 20 minutes until someone poured a beer into it, and it died and never really came back to life. So that was kind of my first experience with the problem, but obviously I was terrible at building speakers back then, and so I couldn't really solve it myself. But for the next few years after, as I went through high school, I teamed up with Christopher, who's one of my co-founders today, and we started building speakers together. And eventually we got pretty good at it. The speakers got bigger and bigger. In the end, they were hundreds of kilos, 2 meters wide, 2 meters tall, really large. And yeah, we got pretty good. And then in 2014, when about to graduate high school, one of our friends approached us and asked us if we could build a speaker for her camp. And we thought, sure, we could use some extra money for graduation time and going to all the festivals that we wanted to. So we put up an ad on the Danish version of Craigslist, basically where you sell used stuff. Thinking that we could sell, 2, maybe 3 if we were lucky. Because to be honest, it was a wooden box with some speaker units in it for $1,000. Pretty basic stuff. But when we put up the ad, I think it took less than 2 minutes before we sold the first speaker. And then over the next 4 weeks, we got more than 200 phone calls that were all willing to pay $1,000 for what we, to be quite honest, didn't think was that good of a product. And we couldn't build 200 at all. I mean, we were taking our exams and we thought we were going to need them to go to university. But we built 5, and I think seeing how happy these 5 people were and how much the other 195 people wanted them, we said, okay, let's go for it. So after high school, for the next 6 months, we saved up money, just working regular full-time jobs. We got our third co-founder, Hjalte, in. And then in January 2015, we started buying home parts. And everything was super basic. Everything was stock parts. We didn't have anything made for us. And we started building prototypes. and we built a shit ton of prototypes and was able to launch in March 2015, 2 months later. And just with a simple web shop selling in Denmark, kind of just targeting this one festival. And not much happened at the start, to be quite honest. But as summer came, demand started to really grow as well. So I think, the first month we did $1,500 in revenue. Next month we did $20,000 in revenue. Next month we did $50,000 in revenue. Jesus. And then we did $200,000 in revenue in the first 20 days of June. And then we're sold out and had sold like 400 speakers at that point. And to be honest, it was quite hectic. We hadn't really thought about how long time it would take to build these speakers. We were just selling, and said we would deliver before the festival. And then at one point we did a test and we saw, okay, it takes like 5 hours to build one, and we've sold 400. That's like 2,000 hours. How are the three of us going to cover that? Yeah. So we hired 24 people in the span of like 10 hours. And then for the next 3 weeks, they worked up in a garage up in the suburbs of Copenhagen, just like hammering speakers together, hammer and nail, like super basic. It was basically 8 guys from 8 to 4, 8 guys from 4 to midnight, and then 8 guys from midnight to 8 in the morning. Jesus. And then we just took turns running the shifts, right? And we managed to deliver before the festival, mostly because we told people that we would give them the extra service of delivering it to them at the festival, which meant that we didn't have to ship it before, which meant that it gave us like 3 days extra to build it. Right. But they thought it was good service and it got time. And to be honest, we thought we had kind of saturated the market at that point because we had sold 400 speakers. It's a 100,000 people festival. We thought, okay, not everybody wants a sound system. People camp together in camps, some build on their own, that kind of stuff. So we thought we couldn't really sell more. But when we came to the festival to open our booth at 9:30 in the morning, we saw that 70 people were standing in line. And to be quite honest, our first thought was, fuck, are there that many Soundboxes that are broken already? Because we had just hired everyone. And like anyone that had 2 thumbs could come in. And so they weren't the best quality, to be honest. But we came closer and saw that no one had brought a Soundbox. And they were actually all there to buy. And then we thought, double fuck, because we only had 3 speakers in the back. So we ran to the back, desperately tried to assemble some more, assembled 1 more, sold 4, and again left, like 66 people just wanting like more than what we could deliver. And I think that was kind of the inflection point where we saw, okay, there's something here. There's something that can actually become something more than also just a summer hobby. So I think after that, we started taking things a bit more seriously. We started building a team. We went out and raised some money, and eventually we applied to Y Combinator. And miraculously enough, we actually applied to like Y Combinator on a whim after like Hjalte did a bet with someone. And a bet on who would get in, and then we applied, and then miraculously we got in. Moved to California in January 2016, and yeah, that's where I met you. Yeah.
So I also remember, sorry, cutting you off. I also remember that when we were in YC, you guys were actually getting your first the good quality speaker build. I remember that you guys were assembling that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like YC kind of culminated for us with the launch of our Kickstarter in like March 2016. Sorry. Yeah. And that went well as well. We sold 1,500 speakers, raised 780K in 30 days. And that was at the time we were really sort of building these first speakers as well.
Yeah. And it's always been like, I've seen the Soundboks too. I've seen everything from there. So by the way, when we moved back to Canada, we were living in this incubator, or like working from this incubator called Communitech, a Velocity in Waterloo. And we had a gym there, so we had a Soundboks over there. Ben ordered one, and we fucking loved it, man. It was like,
I'm happy to hear that.
It was so good. Yeah, it's so crazy, man. And so how does, like, you were 16. You guys were 16. Like, I was a fuck up when I was 16. How did you guys, how did you come up with an idea like that? And how do you go even build the first few? Like, how did that happen? Like, that is awesome. Good for you, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know. I think there's a culture in Denmark on these festivals of building your own sound systems and training them. So it wasn't like we were the only people doing it. And we built them along with a few of our friends, and it just became like a summer hobby. And we built them bigger and bigger every year. And, kind of like everyone in the camp, or like maybe 20 guys in the camp, and kind of everyone contributed, let's say $150 every year.
Right.
for us to kind of expand our sound system.
Right.
So we could throw bigger parties on the campsites of the festival.
Right.
And yeah, I think it was just fun. And then to be quite honest, when you're building speakers at the level that we were back then, it's not as complicated as people think. It's like putting plus and minus together and pretty basic.
Okay. And then once you kind of got the initial start, then from there you guys like basically dig down deeper and like learn more and more about it, and then kind of improve the speaker as you went.
For sure. Yeah. So like our product development team is still headed up by like a guy that I went to high school with, a grade under me, who was better at building speakers than we were. But of course we have like super talented and trained engineers handling more technical stuff for him.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. You know what's crazy though? When you are like building like that many speakers, right? It's great. Yeah, it's so crazy to think about for like someone like me, like, you know, when I don't know anything about speakers, and I'm like, man, you guys are building like 16-year-old guys building like better quality than Bose in a sense, right? And you're like, you think about that, right? It's crazy. And so, did any of the first initial speakers, did they break, and anybody came back after?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be quite honest. I think the first 400 we sold, I think they had a failure rate of about 40% or something.
Wow,
but then we just made an extreme effort of, and we knew that might happen, right? But then we just made an extreme effort of providing like customer service to a level that was, I want to say, financially responsible. You know, if someone was at a festival 3 hours away and their speaker broke there, we would drive there and we would fix it for them on the spot. I think that was kind of our way to make up for it. And of course not charge them, right?
That's awesome, man. And before we move on to the questions, I want to ask one last about your story. So after getting to YC, after raising the money, how did the growth happen? Like was it like same trajectory when you launched outside of Denmark and went to different markets?
Yeah, so I think it went like 2016 things accelerated pretty quickly for us, probably also a bit too fast because we made a lot of major fuck ups that we can like and almost killed the business. I think several times. We can get back into those at a later point. But yeah, I think, you know, we did 250K, like 250, 300K revenue in 2015. Then we did 3 million in 2016. So we 10x'd. And then since then, we've pretty stably just doubled year over year.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Okay. So first of all, I want to talk to you about the idea. Because you built this company because of something you guys really wanted. You guys love to party.
Yeah.
How important is that when you're building a startup? Like, what if someone, like, you know, like when you're building, how important is that you build something that you really, like, you know, you want yourself, you think?
So I think I'm going to use like the most cliche quote that there is, but I honestly find it to be quite true, which is that it's like, it's not the founder that picks the idea, it's the idea that picks the founder. And what I mean with that is like I don't think that you're going to be able to go through all the shit that a startup really is without it being something that you feel just calls to you. So I think it's super important that you are building something that not necessarily you will use yourself, but something that you really feel other people need and that, you know, like will make the world a better place in many ways.
Love it. And then, but what if someone doesn't know?
Or I'm not a better place, a more fun place. I'll say that, like, the speakers make the world a more fun place.
Awesome. What about like if someone doesn't know right now, let's say even like not even like at 16, but like even let's say if someone's older, right, and they don't know what they're passionate about, or they don't know, like, you know, what should they get into, but you know, like they know that they want to be an entrepreneur. So what is your advice for them, you think?
I think if they don't have the idea yet, I think they should join another startup. Find another startup that has, you know, founders and a culture and a product that speaks to them. Maybe it doesn't call to them in the same way that their own idea will at one point.
Okay.
But I would say, you know, don't force sort of the idea generation upon yourself, because I don't think that'll turn out well. Go join another company, learn everything you can there, and then at one point something will call to you, I think.
I love it.
And then it's following that.
Makes sense. I think if you're young, especially, you can take risks. You can kind of go, even if you go work for free and you put in 80-hour weeks and you go crazy and you learn so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a ton of people here that you know, a ton of like our early guys that are 100% gonna start their own companies one day and are gonna be incredible founders, all of them.
Yeah.
And you know, then I feel super fortunate that they've decided to kind of, let's say, you know, get their stripes here. And yeah.
And learn from you guys. It's like you guys are obviously, you guys have been doing this for so long. You guys are so amazing at what you do, and it's a great way to be around you and learn from you and like kind of build up on that rather than making those mistakes. You would you would make.
Yeah, but I think to be honest, most of the people working here are way smarter than I am. So in that way, I think I have even more to learn from them.
That's awesome. Okay, I think one more thing in the same kind of thing, I realized, and I want to get your thoughts on this, that when I was doing my company, we used to throw parties on campus. Man, I was always so stressed out when I was throwing these parties. I could never actually enjoy. Was that the same with
Yeah.
you, or no? When you actually had the work and the parties mixed together?
So I think I'll answer this question in like multiple different facets. I don't think necessarily that I personally attended so many of
Okay,
those parties
makes
myself
sense.
that you see on our content.
Yep.
We had other people do that, the people shooting our content, the people hosting those events. That's not my strong suit necessarily. I've been more behind the laptop, building the business and raising the money.
That's fair.
And then we have had other people who are more talented than I am at sort of creating that brand. But then I think of course I think it is normal to be stressed as a host, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But that's actually one of the things that we're trying to build with the Soundboks is for you to definitely not be stressed out about that. Because I remember that feeling from when we were like at festivals, kind of because you're the person responsible, you have to make sure that people don't fuck up the sound system, that they don't sit on it in weird ways, that they don't pour a beer into it, that doesn't run out of battery, that make sure it plays loud enough. And we kind of wanted to solve all of that. So we wanted to create something, where you knew it was loud enough. You knew it wasn't going to break, and you knew that the battery life was long enough.
Right. So I also is that another thing that actually going to the parties you were there as well, and you're like seeing how are people liking it and kind of like enjoying it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like it's massive. It's I'm super grateful to be able to go and see places where people use the product and speak to them, and also see kind of how the community develops year over year. Because Soundboks, like the Soundboks owners, have a super strong community and they modify their products. So it's super interesting to see kind of, okay, first year I come to this Danish festival that we started at. It's nice. I see one. Next year I see 200. Then I see 1,000. Then I see 3,000 year after. And then the year after, what I'm excited to see is the people who have customized it.
Right. Okay.
And things like that. Right. So it's interesting to see kind of how it grows and modifies.
Love it. Cool. Let's talk about your YC experience. What was that like for you? How did it make you feel when you guys got in? I know you said it was a bet that one of your co-founders had, but how was the feeling? And yeah.
So I think YC was super important for us in many ways. I think I remember that when we got in, how fucking happy we were. We were in airport, and I jumped up and down, screamed, and just ran back and forth to just get like the energy out of my body.
Yeah.
But I think one of the key things that YC really did for us was that, to be honest, I think like right after we had started Soundboks, we were a bit too full of ourselves. Because we had started this company here in Denmark. Things had gone super fast, super well. We had won like awards as the new young entrepreneurs in Denmark, and were raising like millions, and as a 20-year-old, that I think that goes to your head a bit very fast. Like suddenly you think you're the man, you think you can do everything. And I just have this very, very clear image of like me arriving at YC. And then like going around and I'm looking to see, okay, is there any other young people that maybe doesn't do like so incredible things? And then I see a guy and it's a guy called Alex, and Alex is my friend now. I was in Thiel Fellowship with him. It's Alex from Embark.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, he's a young guy. He probably doesn't, he's maybe a bit on our level. And I go and talk to him, and he's like, I ask him, so what do you do, Alex? And he's like, I won the world championship in robotics last year, and now I built a self-driving car.
I remember that.
And then I'm like, fuck. And then he's like, what do you do? I'm like, I build a speaker that's really loud and you can pour a beer into it.
I love it.
Alex is incredible. They've raised $70 million.
$70 million. Yeah.
Since then. So he's also like out of this world. But then I still have this other feeling of like going kind of to the next person, and like for all my luck in the world, I end up with the guys from Relativity Space, and I'm like, what do you guys do? And they're like, we are 3D printing rockets and sending them into space. And again, I'm standing like there. I build a loudspeaker.
And pour beer
And
on.
then I like, yeah, exactly. And I go to the last, like I'm thinking, okay, I'll give it one more try. There must be someone here who doesn't do that much insane stuff.
Yeah.
And I go to the last guy, and it's one of the guys from Boom.
Yeah, I was
like,
okay,
we're building the Concorde for the 21st century, and we have
funny.
like X billion dollars in letters of intent from like Virgin Airlines. And I just think like that was just such a humbling experience to see. Okay, we might have thought that we were good, but we are terrible compared to these people. And I think that was a super important experience for us.
Yep, it's funny that you use Boom's example, because I was gonna say the same thing. When we heard about Boom and this is what they were doing, we were like, what the fuck are we doing? We're building an app where people talk anonymously. These guys are they're making like super light airplanes. What the hell?
Exactly.
Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome. So that experience kind of like brought you back, and you're like, it's amazing to be here with these smart people. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think other than that, I think YC was just a really solid experience for us, and we just, to me, it's not like YC teaches you how to do sales or teaches you how to do marketing, but I think they just teach you that mentality of being, I think they call it relentlessly resourceful, and I think that is just super important. And I still talk with Michael Seibel, who was our mentor, to this day, and I think just as well, like being able to spar with a person like that on product, even now when he's the CEO of the entire YC core, is just incredible, and I'm super thankful for that.
That's amazing, man. So now I knew all about YC, like, because I've been there, I've seen a lot of people. I don't know anything about Thiel Fellowship. I want to know all about that. How was that? I didn't even know, by the way, you got, when I was making questions, I was looking at your profile on Bookface, and I'm like, holy shit, I did not know that. So what was that like, and how did that happen?
I think it happened actually because one of the guys from Embark referred me. So
okay.
And then I applied, and then I got accepted into it, and to be honest, I think that's been a super good experience as well. It's more like low touch and not as frequent as kind of the YC, especially when you live in Europe. I think it's different if you live in SF, where they have a lot of dinners and things like that. But I think, again, I mean, the amazing thing about being in Thiel Fellowship is that you get to meet a group of people at your age doing similar things to you. Again, there are people there who are a gajillion times smarter than I am, and working on much more incredible things, but you can still connect around kind of how is it to be a young entrepreneur suddenly having leadership responsibilities, millions in funding, all that kind of stuff, and I think that's super powerful, and I've met like some of my best friends there now that I travel around the world to go and see, right? So I think, especially for that social part, it's been incredible.
Yeah. I think you're being super nice. I'm sure if you were not as smart as them, they wouldn't have accepted you. So, but
I don't know. I think let's say I was in the top two.
No, man, that's amazing though. What is your advice for anyone, young entrepreneurs out there who are trying to get into the fellowship, and what would you say?
Work on your startup. I mean, just yeah. I mean, you can try all sorts of tricks and stuff like that in your application, but none of that will work. You just need to build a great business and do cool stuff to get in, and then the application doesn't matter almost.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Let's talk about mistakes. Looking back, you said in 2016 you guys made a bunch of mistakes which almost killed the company. What would be some of the biggest ones you guys made, and how would you have avoided that looking back now?
I think there's especially one mistake that I always think back to, because it was like so detrimental, and it literally, like, it crippled us for 18 months and almost killed the company. And that was like kind of after we were done with our Kickstarter. We had sold 1,500 speakers in 30 days. And we thought, okay, then 1,500 in 30 days, then we can easily do, 10,000 in 6 months. So we, and me as the CEO in the end, placed an order for 10,000 units, parts for 10,000 units, and that's like, that's $3 million in Soundboks parts. And we did this at a time where we had no idea how to sell them. To be honest, we did it when we didn't have the organization at all to sell them. We did it when we didn't even have a production up and running. And to be honest, we did it when we didn't know shit. And I have this very clear memory of like 2 weeks after sort of us placing that order, and I'm picking up my girlfriend at the airport in LA. I haven't seen her for 4 months, and we're gonna meet and have a nice time. And like 20 minutes after I picked her up, we've just arrived into our Airbnb. Christopher, my co-founder, calls me and said, "Hey, the company that we thought was going to handle the production, they've just terminated our contract." And I was like, "Fuck!" And to Christopher's kudos, and I am thankful to him to this day. He just said, "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. Enjoy your vacation." And miraculously, the guy got a full production up and running again in a few months after. In like 2 months, he managed to like set up a full production, which is, anyone in hardware knows that that's impossible. But apparently, when you're 21 and insane like Christopher, then you can do it. But still, that crippled us because we thought it was going to take 6 months to sell. It took 18 months.
Wow. And
the reason why it took 18 months was because we had like the products turned out to be way more expensive than we thought they were. We also had to fast ship everything because we were delayed and we wanted to deliver on time to our customers. We had to reroute a lot of containers from the old factory to the new factory, all that kind of stuff. And in the end, we kind of ended up in a situation which I often refer to as kind of the death triangle in hardware, which is where you can't sell products because you can't pay for marketing, because you have to pay for parts for products that you can't sell, because you can't pay for marketing because you have to pay for parts for products that you can't sell. And that just puts you in a position where there's never any money in the bank. You can't really spend anything on marketing, and you have to be like super tactical about liquidity all the time. And you're just,
right.
To be honest, like it was not a fun time, and it was kind of like, it was getting into work every day every like month on the 20th and figuring out how the hell am I going to pay salary on the 30th, and overdue bills, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, and it took us 18 months, but then we sort of finally sold the last speaker. And looking back on it to this day, I actually think that we were fortunate enough to make that mistake at such an early level of our journey, because we're able to raise enough money to kind of get out of it.
Yep.
Because we've seen, and ever since then, we just really sort of switched our focus to growing healthily.
Right.
Because we saw a ton of these like hardware startups coming out of like Silicon Valley. They did a great Kickstarter. They raised 10 million in a Series A or something, and then they barely got to market because they bought too much inventory. You can find a ton of them. There's Lily. Lily is a good example. Then there's Doppler Labs. Startups like this that are incredible companies, but I think scaled a bit too fast. Because in hardware, it isn't just about growth. It's also about like forecasting, budgeting, inventory management, right, liquidity, all these kind of like, I don't want to say super boring stuff because I think it's very exciting. But more sort of like finance technical stuff that you need to nail, because if you don't, then you fuck up and you die. Yeah, so I think that was the biggest mistake that we've ever made.
Right. And how do you avoid that now? Like, how do you think about that? Moving,
I think we in 2017 we started getting like forecasting almost down to like a science.
Got it.
And followed up, forecasted on a rolling 12-month basis, on a weekly basis, change the forecast constantly, budgeting, followed up. And we also went for a strategy where we've always been on sort of the inventory constraint side. So we've always rather ordered a bit too little inventory, and then when sold out, which we've done every year, rather than over ordering and having too much cash tied up. Yeah.
Interesting. And it probably also builds like if you sold out, it probably also builds like, that the thing where people are like, I kind of want it because I kind of can't have it, and like,
sure,
right?
There's some hype.
Also, it also helps that as well. But I mean, not that's something you should do, but I'm saying it's a better way to go rather than not delivering on the value.
Sure.
And, it makes complete sense. Or having things sitting and wasting money kind of thing. What about fundraising? So I remember when we were in YC, um, I still remember to this day, by the way. We were like for the demo day, and you guys were running, you were running around. I chatted with you, and you were like, "Yeah, man, already closed, already got signed up for like $2 million at a $9 million valuation, or something like that." I still remember that. We already had like commitments on demo day, and we were like talking to ourselves. We were like, "What the hell?" Like we were like, like we're like, "How the
Uh,
hell did you do that?" And how did that happen?
I don't know. I think first off, it's important to say that that early interest and sort of ability to raise money and offers on demo day isn't necessarily sort of a good precursor to startup success, because there's definitely startups that had less interest on demo day that have gone and done way better than we have so far, right? But I don't know. I think to be honest, what we really had going for us and is just that we have a great story
Yeah.
of starting building the product ourselves, hobby turning it into a business, and really sort of having that grit to just fucking build the product by hand by ourselves and not make a manufacturer in China do it.
Right.
I think that's seeing that that we're cutting the wood ourselves and doing all kinds of weird stuff, right? But just that we didn't mind putting the work in, I think was one part. And then I think the other thing is, and that's also, I know, the reason why we got into YC is because we were so close with our customers that
Right.
we knew we could tell you everything about them, the emotional responses, like what exactly they wanted.
Yep.
Like if you ask Michael to this day, like why did he accept us into YC? Because I know he's like the guy who said that they should get in. It's
Yep.
because apparently like 10 minutes into the interview, he asked us, how about selling this to hotels? And we all just looked at him like he was fucking retarded, apparently. At least
Wow.
that's what he tells us to this day. So I think we've been super focused on target groups and just been very narrowly focused. I mean, we're doing what 28, 30 million in revenue this year, and we still only have one product, and we still like really only sell in three markets.
Amazing. And
So I think we're just
and I think
focused.
you guys were you guys were yourself your customers, right? You guys were the ones who were
Yeah,
partying. Yeah.
that's how we knew the customers. We
Yeah.
we, we at least somewhat knew ourselves.
Awesome. And how do you see that? What do you call like? What's the long-term vision now? Like, do you still want to cater to that market, or are you thinking about like kind of going more mainstream, or what's the how do you where are you going from here?
No, I think you can think of it in the way that I think with the Soundboks that we sent out last year, the new Soundboks or version 3 is at that point we've created the speaker that we've always wanted to create, and now we're kind of let's say turning our attention to the other parts of the experience.
Got it. Okay.
Uh, I think that's about as deep as I can go.
Awesome, awesome. I'm excited to find out when it comes out and everything. Awesome, man. Thanks so much. Those were really amazing things. Let's do one last round where I do, which is like the 4 quick fire questions. Um, so we'll start with the first one, which is one unconventional slash thinking outside the box kind of thing you guys did in your business.
We once announced that we were going to do White Monday, which is the opposite of Black Friday. It was
Okay.
where we raised our prices. But we announced it to our customers a few weeks before. Just told them if we don't raise our prices, we're going to die. But if you want to get it at the old price, you should buy it before the 14th. And it was great for cash flow because everyone bought,
Yep.
and we raised prices without anyone thinking we were assholes.
Awesome, and it worked perfect. Like you had a great like a. Okay, good. Love it. Advice for someone applying to YC.
Um, Write a short application.
Okay, cool. Advice for someone starting their first startup.
Ask for help. And you don't be afraid that people are going to steal your idea. No one's going to steal your idea. And like 99% of the people out there in the world are really nice people that all want to help you.
I love that. One last one. If there was only one thing people could take away, something that has helped you in your life a lot, what would that be?
Mm, Again, I think the key thing and one of our cultural traits here in Soundbox is sort of the willingness to be open and vulnerable. So being able to talk about your mistakes, reflect on them, and ask for help.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much for doing this, man. Really appreciate you coming on. And
Yes.
awesome, man. And I'm really excited to see the growth of Soundbox and the next thing that you guys are coming up with, which you can't talk about. But I wish you all the best, my man.
You too, man. Cheers.
Cheers.